our next speaker, which is going to be very interesting because it's my dad. So I'm very grateful for both my parents teaching me so much. And I know a lot of what I've learned is from my dad's personal story of growth. And that is what he is going to share with you today. So I would like to introduce Bradley Fry.
Thank you, Sarah, Courtney, McStaffing. I'm really honored to be here. I've been watching these seminars for the last few weeks now. I'm just having a blast listening to them. And Josh and Jeremy, awesome Q&A. It was really great. Yeah, being the old guy in the group, I guess, pushing 60. I was born during the civil rights movement, and as far as racism is concerned, I mean, it's something that I've grown up with. First grade, I was the only black person in my class, even though school segregation had been abolished and done away with well into the 60s. There still were schools out there that were still segregated. And but I guess one of the things that I just really wanted to kind of touch on from hearing all of the discussions over the last few weeks, with all of the left and the right, the black and the white, the Black Lives Movement and the All Lives Movement. I just think it's important for everybody to not allow the conversation to be hijacked by those from the far left and from the far right. The whole conversation started off was to try to bring light to a problem. And I guarantee you, on both sides, left and the right side, there are just agitators out there, and all they want to do is just keep things going. And the whole message is being lost, and we're allowing agitators to just hijack the entire conversation. And it's going to be out there. There's really nothing that we're going to be able to do about it. When I say nothing to do about it, I don't mean there's nothing that we should be doing about it. What I'm saying is that there's always going to be people out there that are not going to agree with us, and we need to learn how to get on our feet, keep on going, and talk to those people that want to listen. One of the things that I got to share with some of my co-workers at work, I don't have a problem with a person having both fingers in their ears, because that just means they don't want to listen. But if you got your finger in your right ear, your finger in your left ear, that means you're only just listening to one side of the story. And we need to just quit. I mean, I listen to Fox News only because I want to be able to hear what they have to say. I don't agree with them, don't get me wrong, but yeah, it's I don't know. It's been a very emotional time for me, being 59 years old and really seeing things that are just haven't changed. And just listening to Jeremy, I had so many things that I wanted to say, and my emotions just pretty much just went all over the place. Even as they were talking about things that the things that we're going through today. But yeah. I just got to bring myself back to where I was. I'm sorry, guys. I'm kind of a little emotional right now. Jeremy and Josh were talking about as far as black and white, and what it means to be, as far as what should we be called. If we go back to the early days, I mean, even within our own community, as far as black people, there's always been an identity crisis. We used to be colored, we used to be black, we used to be Negro, we used to be African American. It's just so many things that, we've all just had to go through. And so kind of got off topic. I got a little nervous. If it didn't pick that up, go ahead and laugh at me if you want to, but that's fine. But yeah. So yeah, I'm at a loss of words right now. I really am. and I apologize. I thought I was, ready for this conversation, and
Mm.
I just realized how much this racial tension that's going on has just really, really affected me over the years. Um, it's hard to kind of, you know, put into words um, what it is that I really want to say right now.
Mm-hmm. Well, if you would like, we could hop into some questions that we've gotten from our panelists
Well,
already.
Hey Brad,
yes.
I think your microphone, it's really staticky. I don't know if anybody else is hearing that static. Um, is there any way, like, do you have an iPhone or something that maybe, because I don't know, it sounds like, because you're saying such great things. I just want to make sure your words and what you're saying is being heard, because
I'll try to put the microphone a little bit closer to me, and
oh, there you go. That sounds much better.
is that a little bit better?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah.
So one of the first questions that has come up is it says, how hard has it been working in a majority white neighborhood? I think you work in the Jenison, Hudsonville area.
Yeah. I work in Hudsonville, and when we first moved here from California, and I said I was going to be working in Hudsonville, I actually was asked Hudsonville, and I didn't have a clue what that was. I knew nothing about Hudsonville whatsoever, and I quickly found out that I was probably one of the few black people even in Hudsonville. And true story, I can recall going into the family fair in Hudsonville and seeing another black guy, and he looked at me and he was like, "Hey," and we're both kind of looking at each other like, "Oh my God, there's another black guy here in Hudsonville." And so, yeah, that was. But I will say this, as far as my job and everything, that my boss. I mean, they've been awesome, just wonderful people to work for. They've accepted me, my family. Courtney's worked there. My son has worked there. So yeah, it's like two different worlds if I think about where I work and the actual community. So it really hasn't been that bad. I can really say, honestly, it hasn't been that bad.
Thank you. Another question that we got, actually first, I do want to let you know we have Danielle, Karen, Sonia in the audience that just say that their heart goes out to you and they're lifting you up and they're very happy that you're being vulnerable to share what you feel. So people are listening and they hear you. A question that we have had come up is like, what are some similarities or differences that you've noticed from discrimination from when you were younger and now?
Honestly, I'm not a fan of the thing that racism is still there, but it's getting better. Because it's not, because each generation is pretty much going through their own things. It may have been different back in the 60s and the 70s, but we're still facing pretty much the exact same thing. One of the things that I've kind of shared with a lot of my coworkers when we're talking about it, I said, I made a comment that I can respect a person with a Ku Klux Klan outfit on. And they all kind of looked at me like, well, what does that mean? I said, well, at least I know where he's coming from. I said, now the difference between the Ku Klux Klan of then and now is now they have on a suit. So I don't respect a man that's not brave enough to show who he is. And so those are the things that we have to face. Yeah, they're there. Like I said, the 60s was one, and here we are in 2020, and we're still going through the exact same thing. Black men were being killed in the 60s, and they're still being killed today. Black men were having dogs released on them then, and it's still happening today. So, we have this community here that, we think of racism and prejudice, and we want to go back to slavery, but, the same thing is happening here today. I'm not a fan. I hear a lot of those that will want to quote Dr. King and talk about things about not being judged by, you know, the color of our skin, but the content of our character. But if you listen to the whole speech, they'll know that it's far deeper than that was what they're talking about. And, you know, so, I mean, if we go back, I mean, you know, there's people like Medgar Evers that was here before Dr. King. You know, Rosa Parks wasn't the first person to sit down on the bus. And, you know, I would say that, you know, if you really want to understand what it is that we as a community are going through, I challenge you to just do some history, you know, research your history, go back and don't go back about what's in school, because the school is only going to show you what they want you to know, but it goes deeper. You know, I share with my boss, you know, we're talking about, you know, the things that were going on in Minneapolis. And I said, well, you know, why do we go straight there? Well, let's just talk about there was a black man that was killed. You know, so it's, you know, we want to try to water down everything, but I mean, even in the military, being a Marine Corps veteran, you know, there was segregation in the military. You know, I often talk about the Civil War, you know, early war, before 1948, it was segregated. So we had black Americans, they're fighting two wars. We're fighting the war against the Germans, and then we're also fighting the war against racial prejudice and being skipped over for promotions and everything else. So yeah, we don't have to go all the way back to slavery if we want to talk about the racism and the things that we have to deal with today. I mean, it's like I said, first grade, I was the only black person in my class. Love my first grade teacher. I remember her well, Mrs. Newman. She was very protective of me, but yet there was
And Pat?
Yeah, I guess my closing thoughts would be one of the things that I wanted to share was, you know, just don't be afraid to have the conversation. Don't be afraid to be called a racist. And I believe that that fear of being called a racist is what keeps people from wanting to have that conversation. As far as when I say people, meaning me having a conversation with a white person, it's like, you know, there's this fear that you're thinking I'm calling you racist, where we need to understand that all black people don't think white people are racist, that all black people don't think that those that voted for Donald Trump is a racist. And so once we know that, you know, we should be able to have that conversation. And lastly, what about the anger about the black on black violence? Need to get that out of your vocabulary, because I can guarantee you that when they had in the news that 160 people were killed in Chicago over the 4th of July weekend, I guarantee you that those 160 families weren't saying, oh, well, that just happens here. I guarantee you they were angry and frustrated. So I don't think that we're not angry about black on black crime, because that's the narrative, another narrative that they try to push to kind of keep us from having the conversation that needs to be happening. And so, yeah, but great to be here, and just had a blast listening to everybody. Thank you. Didn't realize how emotional this was going to be for me. I really didn't. And but thank you for the opportunity to share, Sarah, and Mick, Staffy, and Courtney, and everybody.
Thanks, Dad. You're awesome. And that's what we've learned these past few weeks, that the emotions are real and they're true. And sometimes this is what people need to see to, you know, get that across. So, Aaliyah, you want to take it away?
Yeah,